NieR Automata is a game that found great success on every platform that it was released on. Whether you're a fan of action role-playing genre or not, you've probably been recommended the game already by a couple of friends who can't stop talking about how good the game is. Unfortunately, no matter how good or popular a game is, sometimes you just don't end up feeling like playing it. It doesn't have to be that the game is not your type or that you just don't think it's that good. It just happens. Sometimes you end up prioritizing something else over the specific game instead. And that's what happened to me with NieR Automata, as I did not play the game for 4 years since its release, even though I always had an interest in it. Finally, when the 4th anniversary of the game was celebrated by Square Enix and the game's fans worldwide, and NieR Replicant's remaster got announced, I decided that it's time to give the game a shot. In just a few hours of gameplay, I was blown away by how incredible the game seems to be. Whether it was the aesthetic, story, or the gameplay, everything was unique and set itself apart from the other games in the genre. Sure, it's ultimately a spin-off of the Dragon Guard franchise, but when you put the two games side by side, the difference is very evident. I was filled with regret over how long I took to finally experience this gem. But now that I finally have, let's talk about my experience in depth. Usually a review begins by discussing the gameplay. However, I'm going to start with the game's visuals because they are the very first things that you notice when it comes to NieR Automata. As soon as you're in the game's world, you'll notice how everything has a distinctive design that makes the game's world feel very unique. Whether it's the designs of the Yorha androids or the post-apocalyptic world that you explore, or even the robotic enemies that you face everywhere. The art style is mesmerizing, and when you complete the prologue and are sent to the main world, everything looks like a beautiful piece of art that you will normally see on the expansive canvas. It doesn't stop there, of course. Now, there are many different types of places that you visit in the game, and they all feel like the world of their own, as they're perfectly complemented the point in a story that you're at and allow you to immerse deeply into the experience. And of course, all of this contributes to you feeling more attached to the characters in the game due to how lifelike and detailed their appearances and the animations are. Ultimately, it's one of the best games that I've seen in the 8th generation and has aged gracefully. The gameplay of NieR Automata has some of the best game design that I've ever seen in a video game, and it's the experience that you can tell could not have felt this good in the previous generation due to the limitations of the hardware. The game constantly switches between its gameplay and perspective, which allows it to feel very dynamic. For example, we start off with an airplane segment which plays like a classic arcade shoot 'em up. Then we're thrown into usual hack and slash gameplay, but then the gameplay introduces new elements every once in a while, such as the ability to hack into your enemies and disable or damage them from the inside. While the game has no conventional puzzles, it makes sure to keep things fresh by adding unique scenarios such as the side-scrolling segments, fighting in the top-down perspective, and a small hacking sequence which you have to pass to unlock certain areas. The combat itself gets far less credit than it deserves by gamers outside of the NieR community, because they feel like it needs more combos similar to games like Devil May Cry. However, I personally feel that it's not entirely necessary because NieR has its own flow of everything and the ability to use many different weapons and utilize the pods within the fights to your advantage. I felt like the combat is satisfactory enough. The game is simply creative through and through with how important scenarios work out and the way you fight the bosses in. And that's just what makes it feel magical. Everything has an insane attention to the detail, and it feels like you're a part of this new world now. And just when you think everything is over, you come to learn that there's still more adventures left. The game has to be beaten 3 times to get the true ending, and that excludes all of the other small endings that you can obtain by completing certain requirements, making a total of 26 of them, each named after the alphabet in English language. You play through 3 different protagonists, and the last playthrough has you dynamically switch between them based on what story requires. It's an overwhelmingly fun experience, and putting you all in words will take an entire day of fangasming. After all, playing as 3 different characters with their own unique gameplay and personalities is no small thing for a single video game. Yoko Taro's games may not always be praised for their gameplay, but the one thing that he's always respected for is the story. He's one of the greatest video games writers of our generation, and it shows in every project that he's worked on. The fact that he managed to make an entire franchise out of the joke ending found in the Dragon Guard is great proof of fact in it itself. Another great thing about him is that he listens to feedback, which is why he decided to team up with Platinum Games for NieR Automata to begin with, so that the gameplay can be as satisfactory as the storytelling too. NieR Automata has a very complex storyline that takes the length of the 3 games to escalate, and that excludes all the lore that you can find in the game's world and read at your own leisure. We start off playing as 2B, with very little information beyond what we are told, and go on to learn a lot about the game's expansive world and its inhabitants. Eventually we branch out into playing as the 9S and then A2 at different points in the storyline, and they all have proper story arcs set up for them. You don't backtrack into the same story with a few differences. A lot changes every time, and you're treated to a scenario that did not exist before at all. I don't want to talk about the story much because I would end up spoiling it, but the entire concept of androids fighting other robots not too different from them because of the mission given to them by distant human beings is an interesting enough concept on its own, and the truths that are revealed to you later makes a far more complex plot than you originally expected to see. If you've been lurking around NieR Automata community for a while, you might have seen a lot of people joke about how this is essentially an amazing soundtrack paired with a free game. This joke is far from exaggerated, because the sound design in NieR is outrageously immaculate. Every single area of the game has a dedicated piece of music written for it, and not only that, but we have 4 different variations to most of them. There's the quiet version, the normal version, and dynamic version, the latter meant for the combat. And then we have the 8-bit version as well, which usually plays when you begin hacking something while playing as 9S. All of these pieces of music contributes greatly to the scenario that the game puts you in. And the fact that there are so many versions to the music means they can emotionally manipulate you by playing the variations that will be most meaningful in a specific moment of the game. Oh, it does not end there, because the game's voice acting is marvelous too. Whether it's the Japanese audio or the English dub, both of them are very well acted. And you can feel the emotions of the characters rushing through their voices at every moment. The fact they won 2 different awards dedicated to the voice acting specifically should give you a good idea of just how good it really is. It almost won an award of the overall sound design too, but was beaten by the critically acclaimed Zelda game Breath of the Wild. NieR Automata is one of the few games to hook me immediately as soon as I began playing them. I ended up getting a platinum trophy for it because I couldn't stop going back to it. Whether it's the gameplay, story, soundtrack, or the visual presentation, the game is nothing short of masterclass in how a game should be designed, and I cannot wait to see what the franchise has in store for the future. You might think I'm starstruck by the game due to how much it blew me away, but when you've been playing it for yourself, you'll see that not a single word that I've said was exaggerated. Well, alright. If you like what you saw, make sure to leave a like, hit the subscribe button, and let me know in the comments what you think of this game and the franchise's future. And if you want to see my next videos immediately, make sure to hit the bell icon for the instant updates. Consider supporting me on my Patreon, with availability to see these sort of special videos earlier with additional rewards. And lastly, check out the rest of my special videos playlist. I have put time and effort into the individual videos, and I'm very proud of them all, how they all have turned out to be. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day.